Good day, Australian music fans. This is Saba from the Silly McWiggles project, your host for this podcast series. You've just tuned into the Silly Encore with a Melbourne-based singer-songwriter and businesswoman, Kate Westwood. How is the last week before Christmas holidays treating you? Ready to take a break and hear more about Westwood Management, Kate's artist coaching project? Last Sunday, I spoke to Kate about the company's beginnings, how they operate, and all the amazing resources they have available for emerging musos. But I also wanted to find out whether she'd had any experience in the virtual realm before starting the online courses and coaching sessions. And this is what she said. Had you been doing any events or maybe music yourself as well online before the pandemic started? Had you been used to that, or did you start when everything got shut down and you needed to kind of pivot to the online world?
Sure. Well, for my business, I was mostly doing things online because a lot of the artists that I worked with were somewhere, the one was in the US, some were in the western part of Australia. Mm-hmm. And so for me, just to be able to meet regularly with people, the capacity to travel and have coffee every 2 weeks, it would make it hard. So we were utilizing a lot of online platforms and chats and phone calls and FaceTime. But then, and as myself as an artist, I don't really have a desire to be a gigging artist. So I'm not playing live shows. I'm a church goer, so I would sing at church. But in terms of my own music, it was mostly just writing and recording and releasing in that space. I don't have a desire to be a really big performing artist. I mean, I'm 39. I don't really have a big desire to be spending, Wednesday nights in the city in a, grungy bar playing live music. No. So for me, I have done online stuff because of COVID, of course, but then also recognizing that I think live streaming and online platforms will be around even when we are allowed to gig, when music goes back to semi-normal. And I hope that artists are doing that and utilizing it, because it would mean that you can't come to my show in Melbourne because you're in Spain, but we could connect, across the world, which is pretty amazing. So I love the capacity to do that if people want to. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great because you see, I think some artists were not ready for it, although the platforms were available for a long time. And I remember I was co-managing a band in Europe here, and they were totally not into it. So, it was really hard to convince them that, it's not only now that you have to do it, but this is here to stay. So it's an alternative to gigging live. And, they were kind of very hesitant. And so, now they do a bit more stuff, but at the beginning it was kind of for them, it was like a jumping in deep waters, and they were totally afraid of it. So it's great that you've had this experience for a while, because it makes it so much easier as well, to kind of connect people, like you say. Yeah.
I think it's way more complicated for bands because to be able to, you need a lot of tech to be able to plug in all your instruments to have a good sound. Even if your camera is not very good, if it sounds bad, people are not going to tune in to a stream for very long. So I do think that bands would find that more challenging. You need a lot more gear, a lot more practice and participation, rather than just someone with a guitar in front of your Apple Mac computer and mic and video. So I do understand that. And then how do we, they're so used to the vibe, you don't get that response. So I totally get that hesitancy. And I don't think you have to do it. It's just I don't have to play live. But if I want to engage, it all comes down to the goals that you have as a band, and whether you actually want to connect. If you don't want to do that, how are you going to build rapport and connection and trust with your fans? So it's, you've got to find a way to do it. And up to you how you want to do that.
Yeah. And there's something else very interesting for me that you just said, and I also read it on your profile. That you are more of a recording artist than a performing one. And I was wondering what kind of the reason behind was, and you already mentioned one, that you don't want to, being kind of a bit older than I would say kind of the majority of the musicians who are starting out, that are probably in their teens even, or 20s. It's much easier for them to go to the city and kind of spend the long hours, and come back at 2 a.m., when they have to take the night trains. Because I thought it might have been because of the stage fright, but it's for totally different reasons for you, right?
No, I love singing. I love performing. I love being up in front of people. I also work in radio on the weekend. So I have no problems with that. if it's nerves, it's always just because I'm excited. But yeah, it's primarily because of my age. I think because I hadn't done it. I did a lot in my 20s. I in a couple of different bands. We never released anything, but just had fun. But it just was never a real goal of mine to build my career that way. And actually, I was really inspired by a lady named Leah McHenry, who runs a thing called the Savvy Musician Academy. She's Canadian. Yeah. She's a Celtic female-fronted metal artist, and she has 5 kids, and she's never toured, she's never played live, but she just found a way to market her recorded music to an audience and build a really successful music career that way, but without actually performing. It doesn't mean she doesn't want to, but she had young kids. How do I travel? How do I organize this? And so she worked really hard to become a great marketer so that she actually keep creating music, and then she would do crowdfunds and raise $100,000 to be able to record her next album from the fans she already had. So she just found a really good way of doing that. She worked really hard. And I thought, if she can do that with 5 kids, then I don't have kids. So Kate, you can do that as well. It just takes time and energy and effort. And yeah, for me, it's more about the connecting with people than the playing live, I guess. Yeah. Sure. Doesn't mean I never do, like I like doing house shows, but I think I want to do it on my own terms at a time and in a space that works for me and my lifestyle, not at 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday in the city. Yeah. You know? So, it's not really a desire that I have.
Okay. It's I'm just asking out of curiosity because, a lot of musicians, like, they want that part of the business, so like when they record something, they just want to get out to people and kind of present, they feed off the energy at the gigs and stuff. So you're probably one of the very few musicians that I know that, not that they don't like doing it, but they've chosen a different path. And it's just super interesting for me to know. But I totally understand your reasons. And I think we could be talking here for ages about, like, how the business is structured, that, it's not necessarily towards women mothers who are musicians as well, so that's kind of like a separate topic that, maybe one day we can discuss as well. Yeah.
And one more thing on it as well is I know my audience, and my audience are the same age as me. They're not going to go into the city on a Wednesday night to come and see me. So if I'm 23 and playing to 23-year-olds, that's fine. But I know my fans and I know my audience. They want to, they don't want to have to get babysitters. Maybe they'll come out to one show a year, like a big album release show or something or a house show at someone's house. But I have to know my audience, and I've got to be able to cater to what their needs are as well. And it depends. If I'd started when I was 20 and I'd build up a career and now I don't play live, that's okay. But I hadn't done that. So it's partly my preference, partly knowing what my audience wants.
Well, it's quite impressive that you would, I can tell that you've done your research properly. So you completely know your audience. So, it's like, I know what I want, but I also know why I want it. So it's great to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate is an artist as well. So, in a way, she has verified all that wealth of information she's sharing with entry-level musos herself. She's convinced that being independent doesn't mean having to do it yourself at all. So, in this part of our chat, which is the last one, we're focusing on how Westwood Management strives to help build and best serve the indie music community. Now, I want to know who put all this together. I mean, all this knowledge and the material that is behind what you've just been talking about. Is it mostly from your experiences, or has anyone helped you put that all together? Or if it was anybody else maybe that prepared the material?
Sure. Yeah. So I am a learner. I love to read. I love to learn. I talked before about Leah McHenry. When I was doing my album, I didn't know what to do. She has a membership in the US. And so I signed up for 6 months, and I learned and looked and read and, absorbed as much as I could. And I'm constantly reading. I think once a month I get a book from someone, this one about PR, this one about music business. I'm a student of the music business, and I'm looking to learn. I'm reading blogs and articles. I'm talking to other people who are working in the industry. I'm going to masterclasses and free seminars from people in my area to learn and to grow. Because the music industry is moving so fast, I have to stay aware of what's happening. Otherwise, I'm going to be creating something that is going to be irrelevant in a couple of years' time. And so I have learned a lot and grown a lot from what I've learned from other people. But I've put all of the programs together in conjunction with, Amelia's helped in some things, but a lot of it has been just what I've learned, what I've come to understand. I have a business coach as well. So he helps me with the business side of what I'm doing. And so a lot of that learning about business. I'm not just learning about the music business. I'm learning about how to build customers, how to market properly, how to communicate, what your website should look like, all that stuff I'm constantly learning. So I'm just kind of filtering through what I've learned, and I'm putting it in as exactly what I said. The information isn't necessarily new, but I'm packaging it in a way that's connected to my values. And one of the biggest things that we're passionate about in Westwood Management in everything that we do is this thing called DIWO. Hashtag DIWO. So we all know hashtag DIY, which is doing it yourself. I don't think that should be a part of independent music, because there's no way that you can do it all yourself, and you shouldn't. Even if you can, you shouldn't, because it's this amazing community of creatives where we support each other. So we're really passionate about DIWO and doing it with others. And so I've packaged all this information in the way that feels authentic and has my flavor on it. And the good thing about any business or any restaurant or any store is there'll be a certain amount of people who will love that, and then there'll be people who go somewhere else, and that's totally fine. I'm not for everyone, and everyone's not for me, and that's okay. That's business, and that's how it should be. So so I put it together. I've got a lot of feedback and a lot of thoughts, and we've done a couple of beta tests with a few of the courses to get some feedback from students before we release it to everyone else. And so far people have been loving it, and I hope I don't really want to create too much more content. Now I just really want to go deep and connect with people. So yeah,
you just answered my next question about the hashtag DIWO. So do it with others. I think it's an important thing in music as well. It's collaboration, networking, and doing things with other people who are like-minded. So
for me, it's just really been about networking, and it's really the whole focus is to serve the indie artist community with practical help and inspiring stories and experiences that to tell them that they can do it. And here in Australia, we have a wonderful artist. Her name's Tones and I. She, did a song called Dance Monkey. It's a billion streams.
Everybody knows her in the world, Kate. Yeah. She's not famous in Australia.
Just checking. And so she spoke on Big Sound last year, and it was so great, but it was so inspirational. It was like, I've never even released music. How do I can't fathom a billion streams. There's such a big disconnect between emerging artists and Tones and I. And it's so unlikely that any of us will get there, to be really honest and frank. And so I wanted to really serve this level of how do you put music on Spotify? How do you do your own PR? How do you learn how to get your voice ready for the studio? These are things that are low level, but so many people don't know because they've never studied music. They can just play the guitar. They don't understand that, that they need to get a business number and set up a bank account and report all their income on tax and like all these things. So look, I think if anyone does, who's listening to this wants to engage with us, we offer a free 30-minute chat. So I had one today, talked to a lovely Lebanese girl who lives in Sydney, and she's studying opera and pop and wants to, her goal is to, sing with orchestras. It was a really cool chat. And it's just a free 30-minute chat. So she asked me a bunch of questions. I helped, I gave her some homework to do just to go deeper into some of her goals, and just said, hey, here's this free guide that might help you in this area. So we offer this free chat capacity for anyone across the world who wants to book in with us, just to have half an hour to chat, ask questions, get to know each other.
So look, just to wrap it up, because I'm sure you're pretty busy and you've got some other chats lined up probably in your calendar. Thank you so much once again for taking the time. It's been lovely talking to you, and I hope we can connect in the future as well regarding anything else related to Australian music.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening, and all the best. Bye-bye. This is the end of my chat with Kate Westwood, listeners. I hope you found out something new, like I did. Thanks for listening. And thanks heaps to Kate for being so patient and explaining her artist coaching concept to me. Perhaps some of you who have listened to this episode will be tempted to use her services. This also concludes season 1 of the Silly Talks series. It's been a short one, I know, but the 2021 Christmas time is upon us, so I'd better leave you to it. No worries though, I'll be back in the new year with more chats about Aussie music with more interesting guests. As usual, I'm eager to hear your ideas for topics to cover and opinions about what you've heard so far. Don't forget to follow this podcast and take a peek at my other adventures under the Silly McWiggles blog. You'll find the details of how to find me online in the episode notes. And before I drop the mic for the holiday season, I'm leaving you with a song. It's called Thrive, and it was recorded by Kate Westwood, who was my guest on the podcast this week. Happy holidays, everyone, and an even happier 2022.